My entitled mother demanded I hand over my house to her because my little sister is pregnant and needs it more than I do. I'm a 31-year-old male and I have a 28-year-old sister that has honestly been the golden child to my mother, but not my father for as long as I can remember. My parents divorced when I was a teenager because my mother cheated with an old high school ex-boyfriend and has always been controlling, manipulative, and narcissistic. And sadly, my sister was like her little mini-me. Our mother also seemed to believe that she had total authority over me anytime she so much as snapped her fingers. She'd snap them and order me around like a dog. It was demeaning. And my sister always backed her up too, so no surprise, I went to live with my dad full-time after our parents split up, while my sister stayed with my mom. The two of them were very alike, and both pretty much stopped speaking with my father unless it was about money. Though I'm more like my dad, my father was very business-oriented and started teaching me how to do his line of work as soon as I was 16. I got pretty good at it, and after 12 years of working for my father, I was made a partner in his company. Things were great, but then about 8 months ago, tragedy struck. My father had become somewhat immunocompromised due to being a heavy smoker for much of his life, and he died at only 60 years old after he caught C-19. I met my mother and sister for the first time in years after we had a socially distanced funeral for my father over a video call. My father was cremated by his own request and buried in a local cemetery, so there was no body or casket. My sister seemed to grieve, but my mother looked indifferent the entire time, though I honestly was not surprised. The last time she saw my father, she screamed at him that he owed her more money, then threatened to sue him, to which he laughed at her. He paid alimony and child support as long as he was legally mandated to, and no more than that. And he even put $30,000 towards my sister's college fund, but 10 years towards my sister's college fund, but 10 years after the divorce, he was no longer legally required to send my mom money anymore because of a judge's ruling. And she's by no means broke. She works at the same job she has had for nearly 3 decades, fully owns the old family home we used to share, and even rents out 2 of the rooms in it to Airbnb regularly. She's by no means hurting for money. Sometime after the funeral, my dad's will was read. Apparently, he figured that if his heavy smoking didn't eventually do him in, something else would. And he even joked about it in a pre-recorded video. He pretty much willed everything to me. All of his assets and most of his money from his business and his home. He left my sister a car, a 2015 Nissan Altima, and this caused a massive rift of jealousy in our family because I became rich and they didn't. So they tried to steal my house from under me, and that pissed me off so bad I did something that no one saw. My mother only got $1,000 and a few other items she'd been claiming were rightfully hers since the divorce. Beyond that, I got the rest of it. And my girlfriend now lives with me in the house my father passed down to me. My sister pretty much went from finishing 2 years of community college to living off her boyfriend and only working part-time online for several years. And during that time, she got pregnant but suffered a traumatic miscarriage. I wasn't aware until after the funeral because we were practically no contact and no one else told me. When lockdown hit, her boyfriend's job started downsizing little by little, and eventually he was only able to stay on part-time, which hampered hers and his finances to the point he was finally telling her she needed to look for better employment as well, since he was trying to find a second job. And then she got pregnant. She claims her and her boyfriend were careful, but they call it her miracle baby. One evening, I got an unexpected knock at my door, and when I Mommy. My mother finally spoke up and said, "Well, I think it's time you did your brotherly duty." To which I was like, what? My mother then proceeded to say, "Now that your father has passed, this house should have gone to me since I was his only spouse, but you can still fix this. You make plenty of money and you could just buy a new house. Your sister needs this one so much more since she's the one with the baby on the way. But if you're determined on staying, you could just keep to one room and cover all of the bills until you decide to move out." out. My girlfriend and I read enough Reddit to know exactly where this is going and how it would play out if I let it go on. So I guess you could say we were mentally prepared. I took a deep breath and stated out loud, "That is not effing happening. You do not order me around, especially not in my own house. Don't you dare talk to me like that." And then I took a step back and did something that my mother considers to be unforgivable to this day. Here's what. My mother started snapping her fingers at me like she used to and started loudly stating, "Stop! I am your mother! You will do as I say because I brought you into this world and I'm the one in charge here! And as far as you're concerned, I am God! That means when I say jump, you say how high! This house is rightfully mine, and your sister will live here. Consider this your formal eviction. But since I'm gracious, I'll give you 2 weeks to pack up your bags and transfer the deed to me." In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this can't be real. But then I just grabbed my cell phone and started dialing. My mother quickly stood up and yelled, "What are you doing?" I retorted, "I'm gonna do what I should have done as soon as this started. I'm calling the cops to get you out of my house." She started swiping at me and managed to knock my phone out of my hands. Then she proceeded to try and stomp on it, but I was quick enough to snatch it up before she could. "That is it. If you don't leave, Then she proceeded to try and stomp on it, but I was quick enough to snatch it up before she could. "That is it. If you don't leave, I will force you out myself." My mother proceeded to slap me across the face, and I returned the favor twice as hard, backhanded. So much so I ended up knocking her back down onto the couch. She held her hand over her reddening and smeared makeup face in total shock and then yelled, "How dare you!" I went back to dialing on my phone and said that if she didn't leave, I would have police come and remove her by force. My sister came barreling in between us, holding her arms out and saying that I should just do the right thing for once in my life and be a good big brother. I snapped and said, "Oh really? I'm a bad sibling? The last I checked, I was the one who had to work for a living since I was a teenager. I had to do all the chores in the house where you just sat on your butt playing video games or talking with your friends all day. And you used to steal my hard-earned money to go out shopping after you spent all of your allowance. You are a complete mooch and a thief. I don't owe you squat. Now both of you get out of here before I decide to dial this last number." My sister started to tear up crying like a baby and said, "Mommy, please make him stop." My mother then began hugging her, kissing her cheeks while giving me a death glare. Then she seemed to think she'd gotten smart and said, "You know, if you do call the police, I could just tell them that you hit me. And who knows, I could maybe say to everyone that you wanted to do a lot worse to a poor pregnant girl in need. I don't think that would be a very good thing for your..." I cut her off with a raised hand and said, "Just stop." I said the one single thing I knew would end this once and for all. The one thing she was truly afraid of. I told her that if she and my sister didn't redact all of the untrue social media posts they made about me and tell the absolute truth, then I'd send all the information I have to the whole family, her boss, and upload the videos we recorded of her online. And then I'd sue her on top of it. She called me unreasonable and that she just did what she did for my sister's sake, and then went into a full-blown lecture reiterating her belief that my sister still needs my house more than me. I bluntly stated that I didn't care what she thought, and that if she didn't redact everything and tell the truth, then I'd make sure her career would be over. She begrudgingly said, "Fine, you win. Have it your way and keep the stupid house," before hanging up the phone. That very evening, all of the lying posts disappeared from their profiles. I was unblocked, and my mother gave me and everyone else a halfway apology, claiming she jumped the gun with everything she said, and because she thought my sister needed my house more than me because she's broken pregnant, but the house needed my house more than me because she's broken pregnant, but the house was rightfully mine according to my father's will, and she knew that before my father even passed away, so she had no right to try and claim it. As for my sister, she also apologized, but more or less just parroted everything our mother said while claiming she just went along with her ideas. And then she blamed what she did all on our mother and her pregnancy hormones. The replies poured in for some time on both my mother and sister's profiles, many furious with them for trying to take my house. house. I got a lot of messages of sorries and my bads from people who previously believed her, but all it really did was show me who was more on her side to begin with, since they were all believing her nonsense so quickly. They were mostly people from her side of the family anyway. No one on my father's side believed her at all, and openly said so. My sister and her boyfriend ended up moving in with our mother to save money, but she put them in the basement in order to keep her Airbnb running. And my sister started to cry on social media that she can't live upstairs, and I'm pretty sure that the two of them were fighting with each profiles, many furious with them for trying to take my house. I got a lot of messages of sorries and my bads from people who previously believed her, but all it really did was show me who was more on her side to begin with, since they were all believing her nonsense so quickly. They were mostly people from her side of the family anyway. No one on my father's side believed her at all, and openly said so. My sister and her boyfriend ended up moving in with our mother to save money, but she put them in the basement in order to keep her Airbnb running. And my sister started to cry on social media that she can't live upstairs, and I'm pretty sure that the two of them were fighting with each other, because all my sister did after that is complain online, and my mother barely posted anything anymore because of the previous stunt that she tried. So we had to end up installing cameras in order to protect ourselves, but only a very small amount of people knew that we had these installed. A few weeks went by, some very weird stuff started happening, and then we looked to see what was on the camera footage. What we saw was twisted. We saw our own mother